So now that we've learned how to write our 5/1 cadences, our authentic cadences, I'm going to talk to you about the two types of authentic cadences. And while I say two types, some theorists will actually categorize this into three different types. One clarification here, which I've said before, is a cadence has to occur at the end of a phrase. If a cadence doesn't occur when the melody ends, then it's not a cadence. If it occurs somewhere in the middle, we would call it a resolution. And that's just to differentiate whether you're dealing with a cadence or something that's acting like a cadence, but it's actually occurring somewhere in the middle of the phrase. So there are two types. We have perfect. So we'd call that a perfect authentic cadence, or imperfect. For the perfect authentic cadence, we can abbreviate it P-A-C, and we usually put it in parentheses. Imperfect, we can abbreviate it I-A-C. So the way all authentic cadences work is they have to have scale degree 5 and 1. That's what makes it authentic. It's moving from the dominant to the tonic. We always call scale degree 5 the dominant, scale degree 1 the tonic. So one of the requirements for an authentic cadence is that in the soprano voice, you have to end on scale degree 1. Now, typically, scale degree 1 can be approached in two ways. You can approach it from below by going from scale degree 7, the leading tone, up to scale degree 1, or less commonly, you can approach it from above, scale degree 2 comes down to scale degree 1. That is requirement number 1 for a perfect authentic cadence. Requirement number 2, you have to have scale degree 5 in the bass. So it has to be in root position. And scale degree 1 also has to be in the bass for the 1 chord. So the bass essentially has to be in root position, the soprano has to end on scale degree 1, and it approaches scale degree 1 by step. If you have that, it is a perfect authentic cadence. If you don't have that, it's an imperfect authentic cadence. Every other type of authentic cadence that doesn't follow this protocol is an imperfect authentic cadence. So there is one or two further clarifications here. In the classical period, your imperfect authentic cadence almost always ends on scale degree 3 in the soprano. It doesn't typically end on scale degree 5. There are some books on the matter, like I believe the Kaplan book on classical form, will specifically say that it has to end on scale degree 3 to be imperfect authentic. Otherwise, it's a less conclusive cadence, and it probably wouldn't occur at the end of the phrase, so we probably wouldn't want to use that. Typically, your perfect authentic cadence is used to close off a piece. The piece is finished, we want it to sound final. The imperfect authentic cadence is used to make it feel like we need to go on. So if you want to have a phrase that kind of sounds complete but also feels like it needs to keep going, you can use an imperfect authentic cadence. So there is one other type of imperfect authentic cadence, and that one is the contrapuntal cadence. So I'm going to abbreviate it IAC, but we would call this contrapuntal imperfect authentic cadence. Not all theorists will differentiate between an imperfect and a contrapuntal one, but there are some benefits to actually identifying the contrapuntal imperfect authentic cadence as a contrapuntal imperfect authentic cadence. The only difference between imperfect and contrapuntal, the clarification here, is that there is an inversion in the bass. So if the bass moves stepwise, but you have a 5 going to a 1 chord, and it might be like a 5/6 going to a 1 chord. You might have something like that. If the bass moves by step, we call that contrapuntal. So that is the only requirement for contrapuntal. It's what makes it, it's a specific type of the imperfect authentic cadence. So next time, I'm going to show you how to actually resolve a perfect versus an imperfect authentic cadence.